And we're live. So hello everyone, happy Friday. We are really excited today to host a new panel at the Blockchain Game Alliance on the topic on DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and what comes next for gaming communities with DAOs. So a lot of exciting things are happening in the space, and we wanted to cover this topic, invite some of the key actors in the space so you can learn about what's happening and see how DAOs can potentially benefit yourself, or you can get involved into one. For those of you who are not familiar, what is the Blockchain Game Alliance? It's an organization who is committed to promote the adoption of blockchain technology within our game industry through highlighting the potential of decentralized gaming, DAOs, DeFi, NFTs, and so on, how they can impact the way games are being created, published, played, or communities are being built around them. We, of course, advocate for more diversity in the space. We've been running several events focused on women in the industry, and we are also providing a space for our members to network and generate business or find collaboration opportunities, to work on research group and make the space advance together, to represent blockchain game companies and provide them visibilities and new users, and of course advocating for the use of blockchain within the game industry. Before we start, I'm going to give a big thanks to all our sponsors, AMD, Antler Interactive, Illuvia, One Way Blocks, Star Atlas, Ubisoft, Vulcan Forge, Mobox, and XAYA, who is with us today, as well as Arc.io, Non-Fungible, Digital Entertainment Asset Group, GamerAsh, TAP, IOI, TriumphX, Algorand, NRKX, Boson, Protocol, Chromia, Matic, Nexttype, Animoca Brands, Contribute, Consensus, Galaxy Interactive, and Tezos. Our members, that's so many members now, we're more than 200. So it took some time to display all the logos. We have, as you can see, actors from various parts of the industry, whether they are blockchain games, chain and protocol, press and media, games, developer solution, esport, and other investors, for example, legal companies and more, all committed and sharing the same goals to grow adoption by showcasing the different use case of this technology through their products, services, games, and more. We run various events at the BGA, whether interviews, workshops on various thematics, like today, hosting panels on certain key topics to increase our knowledge and explain what's happening. We do demo days as well and new member presentations. And without any further ado, let's welcome today's speakers. So we'll have Daniel Kraft, the tech lead and co-founder at XAYA, Gis Johnson, founder at Avegotchi, if I'm correct, from the new logo, I feel like, DAO, Gochi, I don't know how you call it, he will tell us, and Marco Bahn. AavegotchiDAO, all right, my bad, I'm learning new things every day. And Marco Bahn, the CEO as well of, and he will read the logo himself, but yes, it's GameDAO. Perfect. So, well, thank you, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for giving your time to this panel today. We hope we'll have a very interesting and fruitful conversation. This conversation will be moderated by Luis, who is with us today and has been also a new person in charge of helping us at the BGA. And well, without any further ado, I'll give him now the stage.
Okay, so hello everyone. Hello, good morning. So good morning, good evening, whatever it is in your side. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to Marco, Daniel, Jesse for being here as well. Happy to be participating in this panel with you guys. So yeah, let's start up with the questions. So this is kind of a panel discussion, but first I would like to give you a moment to introduce yourselves and the companies or the organizations that you're representing. So the first question would be for Daniel. So tell us about Soccer Manager Elite and XAYA, if you like, and about you as well.
Yeah, welcome everyone, and thanks to the BGA for inviting me and having me on this panel. I'm very happy to be here. So so the project in general that we are doing, the XAYA project, is a blockchain gaming platform that was basically born out of when we started blockchain gaming and getting into the blockchain space even back in 2013, when Andy, who is our co-founder, built the very first blockchain game called HunterCoin at the time. And then since then, we've been working on the XAYA project and learning from these early experiences and figuring out what the pain points were in this very first game, and trying to build a platform that could work for scalable and fully decentralized games on blockchain. So the game that I'm talking about here today is Soccer Manager Elite, which is a football management simulation, which we are building in cooperation with Soccer Manager Limited. They are a company that have been building these games since 2004, I believe. So they have a massive experience and also a massive user base in the millions of downloads of their apps and active users for these games and for this brand that they've built. And basically the very first game that they built, as far as I know, is kind of their flagship MMO type game. It's called Soccer Manager Worlds. And that was already, like, when they founded the company, when they built their game, it was by their founder meant to be a game for the community. It was not, building a game for basically building a business, but it was something that they were passionate about and they just wanted to do for the community, build this game where you could play with your friends and with an online community where you could have like your soccer clubs and manage them, and they play in a league and so on. And it was always meant to be for the players. And there are people that have been playing this for 15 years now, and which basically consider themselves the manager of their clubs, and the clubs and the players they have in this game world to be their property. So it actually is a perfect fit for a blockchain game where you can put this kind of feeling of ownership and for the community rather than run by a company on the next level with decentralization, now that this is possible. So basically what this game is about is, a game world that is shared between everyone. And in this game world, there are only 300 soccer clubs and about 10,000 soccer players, I believe. And each club can have a manager who's in charge of, these typical things like trading players and on the transfer market and managing the finances, setting tactics for their matches and so on. And but like I said, there can only be 300 because it is kind of for the elite in some sense. However, there can be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of players taking part in this through owning shares in the clubs and shares in the players. So basically, they can also have a stake in the game, and also these shareholders can then influence the game world through votes. But in the sense of a DAO. But that's the gist of it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Daniel. Sounds like a very interesting game for sure. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of audience there for you, and yeah, it's we're very excited to see how it develops. We're already having comments here about what a huge game it will be. So yeah, very excited about it, and I hope you and the team are very excited as well for it. So yeah, let's move on to Jesse. So tell us, what's AavegotchiDAO, or Avegotchi as well, if you want to talk a little bit about it as well.
Sure. So Avagachi is the DeFi/NFT crypto collectibles that we've kind of, I guess, been around in theory for about 8-9 months now. So maybe you've got to hear about Avagachis, and we're trying to push the limits for on-chain NFTs that you actually care about. They have kinship scores. We hope that instead of just having the speculative side, you actually want to own an Avagachi and you get attached to it. It earns unique badges over its life cycle. It has a name you don it with, and it has this kinship score that you kind of bond with your Avagachi is the idea. But the AavegotchiDAO is a little bit lesser known, so I'm really thankful to Blockchain Game Association for bringing us together tonight and kind of a chance to put a spotlight on really the most important part of the Avagachi project. Because when we, as a summoner of the AavegotchiDAO, when we summoned it, it really came down to the community and people's interest in participating in this grand experiment. So what we did last September was we put out a bonding curve, and it was following a model that we'd seen Vitalik tweet about, where he mentioned a DAICO, kind of like a DICO, I guess is I prefer to say. And what that is it's a DAO plus an ICO. And ICO is a bad word now, but a DAICO is basically a way to fund a project, kickstart a project, where the development team can't run away with the funds. There's no rug pulls, because all the funding goes into this bonding curve. And so what we proposed was this ghost token, GHST. And so right now, today, the ghost token has done very well. The bonding curve has done very well. And because of that, we're able to build the game and continue to grow the features. And to give some perspective here, the DICO launched in September. It initially had about 5, 6, maybe a little north of that million DAI flow in. So DAI goes into the curve and ghost is minted and comes out. And if you sell your ghost back to the curve, the ghost is actually burned and the DAI comes out. So it has a really cool mechanism for the supply. There's no cap, but there's an ebb and flow in relatively accurate amounts to the demand. So the success of the game. So we have 30 million DAI in the curve today, just over. That all belongs to the DAO. So they have an excellent treasury in that sense. They have also some fees. So they voted a few months ago to put I think 0.3%, a small fee on all the interaction on the curve. That has already generated over 800,000 DAI in fees into their treasury wallet. And then there is we moved from layer 1, we moved to layer 2. We're on Polygon and we're super cozy over there. And we have our Snapshot run up. I think we were the first ones to launch Snapshot on there with them. I mean, Snapshot launched, but we took advantage of it right away. And so we're doing voting over there constantly, signature proposals, core proposals, and there's a secondary market for all our different NFTs, the Avagachis, the wearables, the portals, and there's a slight fee on that also goes into the DAO reward pool. So the secondary market supports the DAO as well, but it's ghost denominated. So if I can share my screen really quick, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah. Great.
It's going to be, well, we'll see here. We'll see if we find it. Okay, this is avegotchi.com/treasury. And it's a really neat thing we do it makes it easy. It's in real time, and you can track the ghost and the DAI fees that are going into those two wallets in real time. So the DAI is coming from the curve fees, and the ghost is coming from the NFT marketplace fees. And so the DAI is on layer 1 and the ghost is on layer 2. And it's all going live into this DAO treasury that the AavegotchiDAO controls. So it's super cool. We're really proud of this. The infrastructure for the DAO is laid out in 3 phases. So right now we're in our V1.5. It's called the cocoon, because we're in the safety of experimenting with what a DAO can be. And some of these mechanisms like committees, leadership roles, these are things we're going to start tackling really soon. And that's going to also be the first time we open up these treasury vaults and let people really start experimenting with what we can do to put the money to work, to put the value to work. So we're super excited about that. Up till now, the treasury has just been quietly accruing and working. You know, the markets are working for it. In terms of the size of the community in the DAO, it's hard to measure, but we have a really good, like we always reach quorum. We have amazing quorums we blast through, and 10,000 plus in the Discord, 30,000 following on Twitter. And then when it comes to the DAO.avegotchi.com, I think I can show that too. We have a very engaged, let's just take a look here live at the DAO. It should be this one. This is the weird logo that Sebastian was referring to. It's like a shield, and it's our DAO, has our wizard wand crossed with our yield farming pitchfork. And so that is our DAO crest. And here you can see we're at DAO.avegotchi.com. This is our forum. And the way we kind of do it is if you want to make a proposal, it starts at the signal proposal level, and it will upgrade to a core proposal if it hits a certain quorum, or the core team right now, if we see it as something that's valuable and getting a lot of traction, but just short of the quorum levels, we can still elevate it to a core proposal, and those always reach quorum. the core proposals are fewer and far between, but this model has worked pretty well for us so far. So this is a ideation lab. It's a place to debate. I mean, you can see here, we just had a post, I guess, 18 minutes ago. And let's see, it looks like they're debating kinship, which again, this is that on-chain measurement of interaction. So if you're just neglecting your Avagachi, its kinship score drops. So they're looking into ways we could, they're adding me. So yeah, they're looking at different things we can do with kinship to make it more gamified. And I just randomly picked one here, but let's see how much engagement it's getting. I bet a lot. Yeah, we've got a poll going on. 85% are in favor of this proposal and 421 views. And this is actually one of the older ones. It's been going since March, end of March. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're trying to make DAOs enjoyable. So voter apathy is a really difficult thing, and people are always trying to come at it with incentives, right? Like, oh, you get paid a coin or a token or something if you vote. And that's fine. But from our point of view, it's more exciting to do that, plus really just try to turn it into a game. And so it's an iterative process. We're all learning, but we're working on a more fleshed out dashboard that will allow these committees in different ways to have actual leaders within the organization or people that are public servants and take on some responsibility. But yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. And I don't know if you have follow-on questions, or we'll do that later, but that's AavegotchiDAO.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Jesse. I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell everyone that we'll be holding a live Q&A session. So feel free to send out your questions, and then we'll ask our speakers very shortly.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Serena and Jesse. Okay, yeah, certainly a very complete game and DAO and technology itself. So very excited about it as well. Thank you very much for explaining us how it works, and we'll get back to you next with a few more questions. So Marco, so your turn. Tell us about GameDAO now.
Yeah, my turn will be a bit more boring. Big kudos to both of you. It's quite a lot stuff which is happening already on Avegotchi. I'm really impressed, I have to say. So yeah, we're building basically Zero.io. It's kind of like an interoperability layer for video games in general. And on top of that, one of the, so to say, first projects will be GameDAO. GameDAO is really, came from the idea to solve actually fundraising as a topic and coordination. So basically coming from like traditional point of view, if you look at the market and see like the way projects finance themselves nowadays, it's kind of a little bit boring, because either you go through, for example, through a VC or through an existing publisher and get funds over there, or you go through something like a Kickstarter and try to raise funds over there. But at the end of the day, there's not really any kind of obligation or relationship between you and the people who trust your project and idea. And therefore we thought like, how can we improve this and make the process of fundraising and integrating the community into, for example, further coordination of the project, make it more enjoyable. So we came up with GameDAO as a concept, which is featuring, it's really focusing more on the fundraising aspect with grants and Kickstarters and lending pools. So at a later point in time, you will be able to have like real shares. So we're really coming more from the regulatory, sort of more boring point of view, because we think if you really want to have mass adoption for such topics, then you need to build bridges into the old world, consisting of legal bodies and regulators just lurking behind the trees and waiting for whatever, for the DeFi scene or for DAOs to do something which doesn't fit into their regulatory requirements. So what we're building is the whole framework with identity layers, with finance protocols, which are kind of auditable, and make this much easier to use. So hopefully we will end up one day at something Avegotchi already has, with kind of like a really big community which is already alive and coordinating bigger topics than fundraising itself. Yeah, but currently we're like in the setup phase. So our plan is like to launch during the next 3 months, like the first public version of GameDAO itself. So people can self-onboard themselves, start their campaigns, and later on coordinate the way funds will be withdrawn out of treasury pools. So that's roughly it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Marco. Yeah, it's a very exciting opportunity for fundraising for the games that you probably are rooting for in the first place. So yeah, it's sounds like a very interesting project as well. So thank you very much. Now let's go for the second question. We'll start with Daniel again. I know that you guys kind of mentioned it, each one in each of your answers, but I would like you to go deeper into detail with this new question. So how are you leveraging DAOs? Tell us a little bit more about how you're using DAOs in your project.
Yeah, so I think I already touched briefly on this. Mm-hmm. So basically, in the game, you have only 300 clubs and 10,000 soccer players. It's also a bit more. But basically, so what is typical for these management games is that you are a manager and you manage your club. But in Soccer Manager Elite, it will be a bit of a different angle because, like I said, there can only be 300 managers, but that also makes the role and the clubs way more exclusive and way more interesting, kind of, because there's only one world and there's one main league and so on. But other players can take part of this in this by being shareholders in clubs and players. And these are exactly the way that we integrate DAOs in this concept, because each club and each shareholder, in a sense, is exactly a DAO. And all the shareholders of, for instance, a player, they can vote for who they want to be the manager, the agent of that player. And then the agent has some powers. They can talk to the manager of the club the player plays for and say, okay, look, I want to be played more often, because if the player is played on the pitch, then they may get a bonus and the shareholders get a dividend from that bonus, for instance. Or if the player scores a goal or whatever. And the same is true for the shareholders in a club. They can vote who should be the manager, and they can also vote on other key decisions. For instance, like if the manager tries to sell one of the key players on the transfer market, then the shareholders can have a say and can veto that, for instance. So basically, the manager role, or the players that are actually managers, will be the very best of those in that game, competing for those limited set of 300 roles. And the shareholders of a club will try to find the best manager they can for their club, so that the club does better and maybe gets promoted to a higher league. And then also the shareholders of the club get payments out of dividends for the club if the club is successful. So in a sense, we are not just integrating DAOs in this way. We are also integrating like a lot of other things, like DeFi and staking, in a sense, because if you buy these shares, then that is a bit like DeFi, that you own these shares, and if the club does well, and if you like made a good choice, and you're voting for the right manager, and, or maybe you're a majority shareholder yourself, and you are the manager as well. But then if you're doing good, then you make profits from it. And also, all these shares can be traded on an integrated DEX inside of the game world. So we have kind of all these concepts coming together, and we believe that especially for this game of Soccer Manager Elite, all of them fit together perfectly to make this game really a great game.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Daniel. So in a sense, you're kind of bridging the two worlds, the virtual and the real world, for the game to be a better experience for the users and the gamers.
Yeah, I mean, most of the game is virtual, in the sense that we also, like the leagues and the matches and everything, there is a match engine that is running fully on chain, fully decentralized, and cannot be controlled, and it's not, there's no oracle that is trusted or whatever. But there will be bridges that kind of link, say, the performance of a player or the rating of a player in the game to the performance of the player in real life, which has interesting aspects in the sense that, if you're an expert in football, so to say, or you think you are, then you can look for, the next Messi, who's just 19 now, and you can buy shares in this player. And then if you're right, then the shares will go up because he's getting better and better.
Okay, it's awesome. Thank you very much, Daniel. So yeah, let's move on to Jesse. So same question: how are you leveraging DAOs? I know that you already told us a little bit about this, but maybe if you would like to go into more detail on this question.
Sure. Yeah, as far as leveraging DAOs, it's the backbone of everything Avagachi is. We ultimately want, I guess I should define my role and how we see ourselves. There's the DAO, AavegotchiDAO, and then there's Kraft Studios. So the Kraft Studios is the legal entity of our development team based here in Singapore. And we are basically working at our customer is the AavegotchiDAO. And so the way that the DAO can be leveraged even further is, I'll give you a couple examples, things we're working on right now. So the Ghost token is the eco governance token. It's the governance token. It's also the currency in the game. And so before, it made sense that the votes on Snapshot or on the Aragon, where we started with the bonding curve, would be dictated by people who hold Ghost token. What we've realized now, because Avagachis are out in the wild for the last 2 months, is that our biggest fans and a big percentage of the value in our community was transferred from just holding Ghost, and instead they used it as the currency to buy their Avagachi, to buy their wearables to equip to their Avagachi, and to climb the leaderboards. It's competitive. Like if you have the best dressed, it matters. So there's been a lot of Ghost spent. And so that means the voting power of some of the most dedicated members has been diminished. So this is a recent problem that we originally, admittedly didn't really prioritize or even anticipate. And the DAO is smart. The community is smart. They're in the forums and solving this problem, and they kind of brought it to our attention. And so what the solution is with Snapshot, you can actually write a different voting strategy on chain, and it doesn't have to just be ERC20 tokens. So right now, probably the next core proposal will, a little alpha leak, will probably be to what extent is the voting power of owning an Avagachi. So if you have an Avagachi in your wallet, that's the equivalent of having maybe a few hundred Ghost in your wallet. So an Avagachi itself will have voting power, which I think is very fair because Ghost was spent to acquire it. It might even be better if you're taking good care of your Avagachi and the kinship score is high. It shows you're engaged with the community. And this is kind of leading into a very interesting kind of direction for Avagachi, where it's not just a collectible, but it actually is like a Web3 avatar. It's like a credit score in a cartoon. So if you're taking good care of it, then it actually has more voting power. And so that's what we're working on right now is how many Avagachi do you own? How many wearables do you own? Should wearables also, sometimes the wearables cost more than the Avagachi, actually quite often. So all of these need to have voting powers defined. And that's something we're working on right now. And it's very exciting. And I guess to follow through on that Web3 avatar, we just released the end of our first competitive rarity farming season, where if you climb the leaderboard, you actually get a payout of Ghost for having the most rarity score. Now, most people would assume that payout goes to the owner's wallet, like to my MetaMask if I have an Avagachi, but actually it doesn't. It goes to the Avagachi itself. We use the ERC 998 standard for composability, and you're able to, like every wearable is an NFT, the Avagachi is an NFT, and then you're able to actually have a pocket. We call it the pocket. And so the Ghost or any ERC20 token can be deposited into your Avagachi. And so it's kind of a little known fact until recently. We're just starting to kind of announce about it, but it's like, did you know the Avagachi is an NFT wallet? And this also has a lot of repercussions for why you might want to have an Avagachi, and all sorts of partnerships we could do where, or the DAO may want to do, where they partner with somebody and say, we want to issue airdrops, or we want to issue other NFT badges. I'll share my screen again really quick here of different badges and things like that are collectible that will build up a unique identity for your Avagachi. And this can all come full circle back to the DAO and your voting power. So let me see here. Okay, here. This is just a really quick screenshot of the badges we just airdropped this week to commemorate the end of the first season. So the purple one is for your rarity score, the blue's for your XP, and the pink is for your kinship. There's 5,000 Avagachi that get ghost rewards, but if you're in the top 100 in any of those categories, you actually woke up, checked your Avagachi, and it has an NFT badge deposited in it. And it either says top 100 or top 10. And so this is our very first time depositing NFT badges into your Avagachis. And the key twist here is unlike the ERC20 currency, the badges are not transferable. So it's hardwired that way. It goes into your Avagachi and it never comes out. And this is what really is key for kind of thinking longer term about what it could mean for a Web3 avatar with a unique identity. Like it's accrued certain milestones over its lifetime, and the act of you owning it maybe gives you some credibility. And it could be anything like I voted in a key DAO decision to I provided liquidity on a partner platform. All of those things are things that we could easily give out badges for, and they never leave your Avagachi side, or pocket. So all of this is the kind of things from the technical point of view that we're very keen to experiment with on the DAO side. And so it's not really how we leverage DAOs, but how we leverage the technology to make the DAO more fun.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's a very fun concept and looks very interesting, very complete, and definitely very innovative as well. It's a management system for your Avagachis. So yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say something, Jesse?
Nope, just agreeing. Yeah, it's not that well thought out. We have a lot of work to do, but we're iterating our way through it. So yeah.
Okay, looks great actually. Thank you very much for sharing. So Marco, your turn. How are you leveraging DAOs for crowdfunding?
Yeah, so in general, like GameDAO itself will be a cooperative in the future, which will be governed by a DAO itself. And one of the parts of all our fundraising protocols is basically the opportunity to instantiate a DAO with every fundraise you initiate. So for example, you do like a certain type of content project, you are like a creative and create, for example, let's say like a music project, and want people to participate in a certain way, then you are able to create like the protocol in advance. So you instantiate it with some deposit with staking and collaterals. And after the fundraiser concludes, the funds will automatically be transferred into a treasury, which will be governed by a DAO, which is just set up around your project. So like this, the GameDAO itself has kind of like a supervisor functionality. So there's kind of a council, which is elected by the community as well. And they supervise the projects which are like in a DAO state. For example, if they have certain milestones they want to fulfill to release certain types of payments. So like this, you have kind of like fully transparent and integrated process to coordinate your project or team.
Okay, awesome.
yeah, I know it sounds a bit boring, but it's really more like bridging the. It's really more. I mean, if you look at other projects, obviously there are like many really cool ways how you are able to leverage DAOs and to gamify processes and so on. In our case, we really took like the from a market point of view, where you now have like such a big hype around NFTs and everything. We took the most boring topics and tried to create a nice wrapper for that to make it achievable for people who are not into blockchain at all or into blockchain gaming. To onboard this and to use this in a reasonable way. So, for example, if you want to create a game which has the kind of like built-in DAO governance, this is possible as well. Or you want to create your organization and it has like a DAO layer because you work distributed around planets or whatever. Then we want to create this thin layer, which is kind of not my favorite thing, but which is compliant. So in the future, when we will have like more regulators looking at gaming, at DAOs, at DeFi, at all these interesting tokenization and gamification concepts, then it will try to grab very tightly to benefit from the monetization. And if you don't start early to build the right infrastructure for this, then all of us will have like a very painful time. And that's why we create this layer to make this onboarding into the space much easier. Yeah. Yeah. That's the most exciting thing I could say about it. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's certainly a very good idea and project, but so is that a way for companies or developers who are creating games to validate or gather feedback from users, gamers? Yeah, I mean, in a way, it could be kind of another feature.
You mean if raising through like to utilize these protocols and using a DAO later on? This is definitely kind of the hardest market proof you can have, because before you convince someone, for example, a big venture capitalist who is just paying in advance for something which might or might not happen, you have the community, which are basically the biggest stakeholders in any kind of game. If they don't believe in your idea and your team, then they won't buy the game. And with such an incentive to become like a vital part and become stakeholders and co-owners even of a project with certain type of protocols, then the incentive for both sides is much clearer and the transparency is much higher. So you have a lot of loyalty, engagement, all these factors will play into like a long-term relationship. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Marco. So let's move on to our next question. We have 20 minutes left for today's event. So we're back to Daniel. So what would a gamer expect from Soccer Manager Elite? What makes it different and unique?
Yeah, so this game in particular, and also, I mean, it is somewhat of a niche game, I believe. But what we've seen with the existing community of these like non-blockchain games by Soccer Manager is that the community they built, they are really hardcore players into this, and there is even like a group of players, for instance, that organize real world meetups, and then they after the season is over, they give each other trophies and things like that for like who won the league. So we believe that especially for this community of these hardcore players for Soccer Manager, that being on a blockchain and giving like fully decentralized and true ownership of the game world to the community and to these players is exactly what they expect and how they probably see the game already, even like if it were not built on blockchain, in the sense that it is their club, it is their game, and the players they own, their assets, and so this is one aspect of it for the managers and the agents and the hardcore players, and also for the players that are just shareholders. I believe that they expect to be kind of to have their own stakes in the game and to be involved with maybe their favorite club or maybe their favorite player or the player they believe will be much better and much bigger in the future. Like I said previously, they try to find a new player, and from their knowledge or from their expectation, they think he's gonna be the next Messi, and so I'm going to get involved on that, and then follow them through his real life career and through the career in the game world, and to really own a stake in that and be a part of it, and really kind of have the world for themselves and the game for themselves, and not just as a service provided to them by a company.
Great, thank you very much. So Jesse, what do you think is the future of gaming communities?
I think the future of gaming communities is very different than the gaming communities that we've all grown up with. So I don't know, like Lewis, what's your favorite game? What did you play, or what do you still play, or World of Warcraft? Maybe you look like maybe a World of Warcraft guy. No, I was more of like a Mario guy. And I
Yes,
think those
I am
communities,
too.
Mario, okay.
Zelda.
Zelda, yeah.
Yeah.
All those, and those communities, like we really had Nintendo Power magazine and like some trading cards with Pokemon, and we get together with our friends. It's very local, and it didn't scale very wide. If you went with the World of Warcraft, it scaled, but you didn't own your piece of the game. If the game went away, you're left with nothing, right? So obviously, this is the whole idea of blockchain gaming, that you kind of play to own. You play to own the parcels of the land. You play to own the game items, and they're interoperable. So if your game falls out of fashion, maybe your sword that you put 100 hours into, 100 hours, let's be real, 1,000 hours into, could be picked up and maybe played by a game developer that accepts that interoperable NFT. So that's where it's going, is like interoperability and ownership. And the way that AavegotchiDAO kind of ties into this is we put everything 100% on chain when it comes to our Avagachis and our pieces, including the artwork. So already we have an amazing community inside the Discord, Avegotchi.com, or no, discord.gg/Avagachi. Check it out. And those coders from all skill levels, amateur, first time coding something, to really pro teams, are taking our on-chain visuals. We're kind of like looking at Avagachi as a protocol. They're taking all of that and they're building all sorts of experiences. I can give a shout out to a couple of the websites that have launched around our game, like AavegotchiStats.com, because everything, including our NFT marketplace, unlike other marketplaces, it's completely smart contracts. So it's all on chain and you can trace every sale. So all of that's being measured, and a team built AavegotchiStats.com, and they tweet out all the big sales every day. People have a stake in the growing ecosystem, and that's so powerful that, you know, they're going to build stuff that we never thought to build. They already are. Another team is taking 3D printing, and they're taking the on-chain SVG visuals, and they're sending me texts at midnight saying, "Hey, check this out! Like, I made a 3D printable." And the eye sockets are hollow, so you can put on your visor from the wearable visor, and it snaps right in. And I was just like, I don't know what you're going to do with that, but that's amazing. Like, you should keep going with it. And I love this stuff. This is what a DAO should be, right? It's not just voting. A DAO is also owning the game, taking advantage of the different on-chain elements of the game. And another part is in the forum we have, we often say, you guys are advisors just as much as you are voters. So if you make a proposal, and we just did a DAO recap this week where there were 2 cases where they made proposals for a vote, and they were just so obvious and simple that our dev team at Pixelcraft was like, oh yeah, we do need night mode. And oh yeah, we do need, what was the other one? Something about reducing the fees if you want to lower the price on your thing in the bazaar, our secondary market. It was like, yeah, we could do that. So increasing fees, we'd probably want the DAO to vote on that. But for lowering a fee, we were like, yeah, we'll do that for you. And so it's advisory, it's voting, and it's having access to all the pieces of the game to do whatever you want with it, within, you know, reason. But yeah, that's kind of what I see as an ownership economy, and then the whole play to earn aspect coming in. So I can share my screen one more time. I prepped this stuff. I might as well share it. Our answer to kind of the ownership economy is having an interoperable on-chain metaverse. So this just came out with our roadmap reveal last week. So it's fresh off the press. It's the roadmap V2, because we pretty much knocked out everything on our original roadmap. And this is the kind of first glance at some concept art. It's by no means final, but the realm is in production, and it is a kind of completely on-chain type of, or I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the idea is that the parcels are more than just owning a parcel, but that you actually have, like, you can plug into other smart contracts with them. Outside people developing smart contracts could host their smart contract in the form of a non-playable character within their parcel. And so again, we're just trying to bring the outside in. Anybody who wants to build something could do something really fun and magical here inside a kind of a blank canvas. And so it's our Gotchi verse, the realm. And we'll have more in this coming soon, but this is just one area where we're looking at, I guess, how we can be interoperable, how we can be open source. And also when it comes back to the DAO and making the DAO fun, one of the very first things when we started this project was, I'd been in a couple DAOs and the apathy was bad and the voter turnout was poor. And we said, okay, I want a game where I go to a town square, like my favorite Zelda RPG, and I cast my vote in real time. And so that's where we're actually trying to go with this, is that there's meetings in place, and I understand there's time zones, so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be there, but it's just a lot more fun to be there in person, and maybe you get a little kicker for showing up to class. And so there'll be a way, because of the blockchain interoperability here, that you'll be able to be an Avagachi running around this little grid and listen or maybe read what the case is made in real time for this vote. A passionate speech is made, and you can make your decision on the fly and vote yes or no. And maybe it's for something like really low level, it's like, do we want to use this color or this color, like whatever. But it'll be a lot more fun. I'll show up for that vote as opposed to going to a forum that's kind of cumbersome and reading through a lot of threads. That's, we're making it work right now with that alone, but I think this will be a nice alternative, and it's very experimental. We'll see how it goes, but love the idea of a town square and voting in real time. And we'll see what kind of votes are appropriate for that model. But I think we'll find some that totally fit, and it should be a blast to experiment with. So the last thing I'll say is there's an ambassador program that's launching this week, or kind of relaunching as a ambassador program part 2. And it's going to be really epic. So if anybody's checking this out and they're not part of the community, they don't know where to get started, the ambassador program would be an interesting way. You don't even need to own an Avagachi. You just jump in. We're going to have a type form up in the Discord here very soon. We'll probably tweet it out. And you could start a little club, and you and your friends could get together and learn about Avagachi together. And before long, you guys will probably have like some real clout in the voting DAO. So it doesn't take that long. We're all still really early.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. So let's move on to Marco. So what's the future of crowdfunding through DAOs?
Yeah, I guess, as we all know, the market is really developing in a beneficial way for all of us in terms of tokenization and fungible, non-fungible token and so on. So this will make room for a lot of new, smaller, bigger teams, which will create autonomous projects like ours. Yeah. But one thing which is really happening at the horizon is that in all the markets, the regulators are throwing more eyes on what people like us are doing and how we are working with any kind of assets, how DeFi works in detail, how we coordinate and so on, how is ownership defined. And then they will come up with the obvious questions like, are these securities, and who is taking care of identities or identifiers and stuff like that. So all the stuff we are kind of freed from in the current state with working on more or less performant networks. So now we are really free to build whatever we want. And at a certain point in time, the traditional world will try to have a bigger, tighter grip on all of these things. I guess this will just result in some baseline things, and it will foster development of decentralized identifiers and things like that, because these things will really enable building transparent systems which are still able to comply or to be audited in certain cases. A good thing which you can see already now is development of how we can use collaterals for DeFi protocols, for like lending and so on. So in our case, we are really like trying to improve the situation with NFTs. So even though NFTs are not like a fundamental building block of what we do in our case, we try to let people utilize NFTs, for example, as collateral. So no matter where you get them, somehow you have to determine a value for these, obviously, but you will be able to use these in more platforms, as a collateral for lending, for example. Then another thing which will be interesting, but this basically fits into NFT as well as IP, so like intellectual property, kind of boring topic as well because it's from the old world. But this is something, for example, as a game development team or like a music or art creator, you will be able to just share the property or the return you gain from selling your work. And this will make open up another interesting part of collateralizing your work. The last bit, I guess, which will be interesting is how will the traditional world really adapt to this massive market movement? And this is more like maybe innovation topic. So currently there are not many legal bodies. I guess there's one, I don't really remember where it was in the US, but there's one state which have now a DAO as a real legal body. And okay, if you're a DAO maxi, then you would say like, no, the main idea about a DAO is to be decentralized. Why should there be a central entity somewhere? So this is something where lawmakers have really to develop new ideas. This is not really related to gaming itself, but in the way, how do we want to see the future markets and how we want them to be interoperable in the traditional world, because not everything we build in the future will be based on blockchains. Yeah. So, I mean, we are now living in our blockchain bubble, but there's still very huge real life where people are not really integrated into anything like this. And we have like old company bodies like LLCs and so on. And all these things, including the laws, are not ready yet for DAOs, for DeFi, and for newer ways to of financing things. Yeah. And if it's community driven or not, community driven financing will be obviously much bigger, because now we have like kind of a transition period with NFTs where people are the first time capable of monetizing something and take it away, as Jesse described. And in the future, we will see better business models, because that's kind of the biggest flaw at the moment. From my point of view, NFTs are more like a cure for a symptom, because we have kind of crappy business models in video games and everything related to that, and content and esports. And they are all based on old sales funnels or monetization schemes. And with NFTs, obviously, it's getting more flexible, but it's just solving like the last mile in this whole process. So what we need to see is, like, by leveraging DAOs, DeFi, gamification, to have better business models. That's basically maybe something we all look for to build, which are like intrinsically decentralized, community-driven, and will enable better monetization schemes for all the people who take part in something like that. So if you have something like whatever, Counter-Strike or World of Warcraft, all the stakeholders can win or can earn at the same time, and not like it is now, as we know it from older projects, where people just invest massive lifetime and money into like sinkholes. One day the switch will be pulled, and then all the assets are gone now. So I guess this is the main thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Marco. So Serena, I think that we have some questions there in the chat.
Yes, there have been some questions, and I want to invite everyone that if you have a last burning question to ask, please do it now. So I want to start with a question for Jesse. So somebody was asking around, not the DAOs, but the actual graphic of Avagotchi. So whether this is kind of like part of something nostalgic, as they have described it, or if it's to keep it simple and more intuitive. So I just wanted to your opinions on that.
Yeah, great question. I'm going to show you, pull that up while we talk about it. This is my Avagachi here. I'm going to get called out because this Avagachi does not have good kinship scores. It's neutral. But yeah, it is all pretty much 8-bit, pixelated art. And I think I find it, when we were first starting, we knew two things. My previous project I'd worked on and continue to support is BullionX, which is a very opposite direction. It's 3D high resolution gold coins with a beautiful display case mobile friendly, where you can like almost feel like this, like you're a coin collector. And we partnered with a lot of crypto artists to make these high definition, beautiful 3D gold coins. And what we learned through doing that is sometimes the heavy art, as I call it, it's not as appreciated. And it's a lot easier from a technical perspective, depending on your goals, to go with a lightweight art. So we knew we wanted to do a metaverse. We knew about crypto voxels and Decentraland and the shortcomings of some of those in terms of performance and lag. And so we just knew from the start that with the big picture plan for a metaverse, we wanted something that was kind of the opposite of what we've been dealing with BullionX. And we wanted to be able to save it completely on chain. And, you know, blockchains aren't meant to be cloud servers. So if you're going to save the entire visual element onto the chain itself and not use something like IPFS or Arweave, like truly on the origin chain, then you need something extremely lightweight. So every file is like maximum 24 kilobytes, which is not much. And usually you want half of that and even less. Single digits would be optimal. And so what you see here is an Avagachi whose the Avagachi itself is, let's go to Equip. And what you can do is maybe we can, like the robe is one NFT and maybe that's 12 kilobytes. And then these glasses have even less detail or pattern differentiation. So maybe it's 6 kilobytes. Point is, you can do a lot with a little, and we kind of like to work within a tight framework. And I kind of want to change his hat now that we're here. I'm going to go with the Rasta hat, just because we can. And let's confirm that. Let's see how he looks. But this is, to me, it's more about the experience and being very approachable. No complex graphics, as simple as possible, and just very approachable, because DAOs aren't easy. Blockchain gaming's not easy, not yet. The infrastructure is not there. So why make the graphics too complicated, especially because especially starting out, we're growing fast, but we were a small team at the beginning. We said, let's go with, I see Javier commenting. He's our lead designer, visionary artist, whatever you want to call it. He's the one that made all of this happen. So we looked at a lot of artists before we decided, and we were like, Javier is just doing amazing work. And it stood out as completely unique, and we just loved it. We fell in love with it right away. And it seemed like everybody we showed it to really, it stuck out. So yeah, we're loving it. And I wouldn't change a thing. And if people want to make 3D Avagachis, they still can. We actually have a team that's taking these SVGs, and it's kind of like, imagine we call them naked Avagachis, but it'd just be a blank mannequin, but it's kind of flat like a pancake. And the SVG just goes on top of it. So there's nothing stopping Avagachis from running around interoperably with Decentraland or Sandbox, or, you know, these are all things we can build out over time if the doors are open and we have the dev capabilities. If somebody wants to build it, they can. So that was kind of the key. It's like, you know how everybody talks about money Legos with DeFi? For NFTs, if we're going to be interoperable, then we knew we wanted to be as simple as possible so that other people can plug into what we're doing.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for explaining that. I think it's interesting to understand, you know, the reasons behind why things look in a certain way. So thank you so much, Jesse, for that. There's a question coming from Macro Zoom. I think I will address this one to both Daniel and Marco. In your opinion, which system platform will be the most optimal for blockchain games in the future? And there's a few listed. What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, so my opinion is that it depends a lot on what your goals are, what you want to achieve. I mean, obviously, being directly on, say, Ethereum is the most security and the most decentralization you will get. Maybe being on a ZK rollup, like they may be coming rather sooner than later, it seems, would be the next best thing. But being on a chain like BSC or Polygon, which is obviously compromises on the decentralization and the security side. But of course, on the other hand, you just reduce transaction fees, you gain scalability and so on. So it all depends on what you want to do. If you have a game where you actually want to send, you know, lots of transactions, and that's what the gameplay is about, and maybe you have assets that have value, but maybe they are worth $100 or maybe $1,000 or whatever, then might be the best choice to go with Polygon. If you are, on the other hand, building a DeFi platform where you have millions of value locked, then maybe trying to use either Ethereum directly or a ZK rollup or something might be the better choice. And also, there is just a balance of things, like how fast do you need blocks to be confirmed for your game? Maybe your game is really slow, or maybe you need it almost like real time. And then all of these things play into it. So I think all of these platforms are good for certain things, and you just need to pick the right one.
Yeah, that's an interesting answer. And I think especially now, a lot of people are being more aware about the speed, but also the green factor, as I call it, the fact that we're trying to be more ecological in some way. So Marco, what are your opinions on this?
Yeah, we are a little bit opinionated at the moment because we started like 2 years ago or so to build on parity substrate because of, coming from its history and the way it's being built, it's really focusing on interoperability. And in my opinion, interoperability is really the most important thing. And interoperability, interoperability doesn't mean everyone is running on the same chain. Interoperability means everybody can run whatever they like, and we have ways and processes and protocols to make these worlds communicate with each other in a reasonable way. So, for example, if somebody wants to build like on Polygon, or somebody else wants to build on Near, or somebody wants to build on Ethereum mainnet, it shouldn't all be kind of like a big barrier to integrate all of these systems with each other. For example, taking NFTs now again, like you have plenty of projects running on Ethereum, then obviously everyone had to pay enough gas fees, then people jump onto Binance Smart Chain, which kind of like one of the biggest benefiting parties, just running a fork somehow. And so many people run there and build whatever clones of things which have come at a cost on Ethereum, But with all of these chains, if you look at them from a little bit of distance, you will see that basically any of them is really capable of running, for example, a real-time game, something like that. What's happening here? I guess my kid came home. So sorry about that. So, I mean, blockchain gaming, from my point of view, is not only games which run natively on blockchains, or, for example, a gamified DAO running natively on a blockchain. I guess XAYA, the team, they're really doing great work with creating games which have the feel of like a full-on real-time game, and make this work with a blockchain with asset structures and protocols in the background. And this is where we have to move to. So totally supporting your answer. It really depends on what you want to achieve. If you want to build the next Call of Duty, then obviously none of the chains you currently have can solve this problem. Or not really in a real-time way, because you still have like what you described, Jesse, with the size of the assets, for example. 6K. I mean, I'm old, so when I started with computers, 6K was kind of everything I had to build the whole thing. And so if you see this now you have like nice sprites and people try to reduce it. It's from an experience point of view, it's quite nice, but it's still light years away from creating like a full-on game with real assets and having like reasonable protocols to reflect this. So if you just want to create a simplified, whatever, collectible coordination processes, stuff like that, all of these things work well on the chains we have now. But if you want to do faster things, then you have to build on your own, or look at a framework which has kind of the intrinsic attribute of being interoperable. And from our point of view, that substrate, it's still a long way away from what you guys can build now. I mean, XAYA has the advantage. They started quite some years ago already, so they already have their tool set and can build almost anything they want. And Avegotchi, they benefit a lot from Polygon, which has a really good times fees and stuff like that. So you are able to create this in a reasonable time frame. So the use case you're building doesn't require it to be any faster. So it's quite good. But if you build on Substrate, currently, to be honest, it's still a longer way to achieve all of these things with leveraging protocols which exist, reusing smart contracts, make all of these things connect to each other. I mean, it's so cool to see this and super inspiring, but from my reality, it's still a long way until we are there. And this more interoperable, but still very early networking.
If I could
Thank
jump
you.
in before we,
Of course,
I know
yes.
this is for those two, but we just made that leap. We originally intended to launch on Ethereum, and the day we were going to launch in January, the first haunt, 10,000 Avagachis, really the day before, leading up to it, it didn't go away, it got worse, was the beginning of the big spike in gas fees, right? And so we had a tough decision to make, and again, it wasn't like a formal DAO vote, but just everybody in the Discord was pretty unanimous that they were willing to wait and they were willing to explore other L2 options. And they knew we were already looking to those because we always anticipated to do a two-step. So all I can say is we were so glad that we waited. We love Ethereum, but we're really glad that when it comes to the use case, Polygon has been amazing. It was really, we had the support from their core dev team, which has been way beyond our expectations. And then the fact that it's still Solidity. If you're an Ethereum developer, you're already a Polygon developer. And just on Daniel, I think you made a good point, but I would just remind, like, even with DeFi, Aave made the move about a month and a half ago, and they have over $2.8 billion locked up on Polygon's side now. So yes, security for sure. Ethereum is the kind of gold standard outside of Bitcoin, but Polygon also supports the plasma chain, various chains and ways of settling, so that it does anchor some security to the layer one. And that's one of the things we really liked about it. The other thing we really liked about it was it's ready to go now, and we don't have to wait till somewhere down the road. So we made that decision and haven't looked back. And yeah, we're very, very cozy on Polygon. So
to be fair, there's one project, it's called Moonbeam. They're basically running a substrate-based node, and it contains an EVM. So you would be capable of running your original Solidity application dApp to run it on a Moonbeam node. So like this, you would be directly connected to the Polkadot ecosystem. So maybe that's something for people who are like have a longer roadmap and seek for more interoperability with other DeFi platforms and protocols. Then this could be one way to get into this, because it's really like chain agnostic. Like there are already bridges for all chains and so on. So if you have time, you can go that route as well.
I mean, this is why we have these conversations. Is very interesting in Moonbeam. So we love building bridges. So we also are not like, like we want to go where the market is and go where the solutions are. But so far, so good, Polygon. But Moonbeam.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. And I really want to thank every one of you for sharing your views on what DAOs are and what comes next in the future of gaming and blockchain. So thanks from the Blockchain Game Alliance, and thank you from from myself, Louise, and Sebastian, to all our audience watching and asking interesting questions. We'll be back again soon next Friday with another event. So stay tuned at the BGA, and we'll see you again very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.